Hey, Julian. Hey, Andrew.
Hey,
Hello.
Julian, I'm excited for your blog post.
I'm going to publish later today. So, oh yeah, if you want to correct something, uh, please let me know. I can always change it afterwards, but I'd rather not hurt someone's feelings inadvertently by forgetting about them. Let's go here. The notes. So, let me share a link to the notes in the chat here. Here we go. Hello, everyone. So we'll build the agenda as usual. You can see in the chat the link to the notes doc. So to start the document, if you feel comfortable, please list your name, where you're working, and what you're interested in. And we are building the agenda below. I put some things already in there. Because there's a bunch of things that are going on and I wanted to just check the status. Feel free to add your questions to this or things you want to hear about. And if just you want to listen in, that's totally fine as well, as usual. Some new faces, I think. So feel free to just say hi as well if you want to give a quick introduction or something. We'll wait a few more minutes as people finish joining and adding their name to the list. I think there's 3 missing. So we're like, if you just join, what we're doing is we just put the list of attendees in the note files that you'll find in the chat. And people just quickly, add your name and where you work and what you want to hear about. If you feel comfortable, or you can just listen in and add to the agenda below items you're interested in. You want to give an update or hear an update about in the meeting. And we start in 30 seconds. So yeah, 40 people and 1, 2, 3. Let's go here. two missing. Okay. Okay. Hello. So I put some things in the agenda. Like some things are relatively new. There's no new updates. We can go quickly. I had listed on the agenda some of the new things we've been working on, like these ALP, FSST, and I think recently we also started talking about more P4, cascaded encodings. Oh, someone added doc spam. What's doc spam about?
I had somebody send me do some stuff to docs and like specifically the V3 proposal and like send me a nasty email. So I locked down comments
Okay.
there. If people want to go back and comment on any of the docs, just a heads up. I don't know if we've seen on any docs anybody else has owned.
Okay. Yeah. So yes, that's the downside of using edit Google Doc. Yeah, it's kind of. But yeah.
And we can maybe tie like commenter to like the Parquet sync mailing list here also, just so that it reduces it. But
yeah, we can always add. So people just need to ask to be added as commenters to the doc, so they can comment. Right? We still comments are welcome. It's just we have to restrict spam. That makes sense. Website update. So yeah, I've seen your email and right. Put some questions. There's some questions for Arrow implementation, but I think we can start like what's our opinion on this, like from the Parquet perspective. And I need probably to join the Arrow sync to ask those questions as well.
use mailing lists. That's what they're for.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right, and there's those 2 points are kind of that, and then there's been the discussion of colons in separate files, which I think, my opinion is, it's going to be an iceberg discussion, but we can also do that. Well, we can talk about it in this meeting. I see Daniel like kind of be unconvinced, but we can talk about it and see what we think. V2 updates. Okay, sounds good. So are we good to go? Let's get started. So I kind of put in no particular order, just like updates on the new encodings POC, and thank you very much to the people who are driving those, because I think that's really important. So do we want to start with ALP?
Yeah, so I am trying to seek some initial, early feedback for the implementation. Hope to just open up the draft early next week for review from everyone. I mostly need to, I think the biggest thing I need to figure out is like a few things that can possibly go in the page header itself. Like one of the feedback from Micah is things like number of values or size can go in the page header itself, and we need to have slightly smaller bit widths for some of the fields. I need to figure that out, and then I can probably open up that PR. I'll also try to add a flame graph. The numbers, once I implemented it in the the arrow code, I do see, as I mentioned, I think earlier also, the Bitpacker is slightly slower, so the numbers are a little different, but they're still much, much better than the other encodings. So that's it for ALP. Hopefully early next week is when I open up the PR after making first round of feedback reviews. For any questions that anyone had? Okay. For P4, I wanted to, get, I started off with this thing called fast P4, and wanted to get a comparison for the existing encoding schemes. And so far, the numbers look pretty good. I sent it out on the mailing list. The numbers look definitely better than for the decompression speed, they're definitely better than Z standard and Delta bitpack hybrid and RL bitpack hybrid. So I tested it for a bunch of columns that sit in the hits2 table, which have different value distributions. So a lot of them are just increasing set value. A lot of them are very large number of values, high cardinality. Numbers look pretty good. I can probably, if someone has a specific suggestion on a particular data set, I can attempt that too to get a little more comprehensive run. But so far, in terms of decompression speed, it does stand out around 2 to 3x better than what we have in Parquet. So a pretty good improvement. Micah, you had a question. I can't hear you.
Micah, you're muted.
Sorry. You mentioned is FastP4 the C++ library, or is that like directly from Lemayere's paper?
No, it's a GitHub repo.
Yeah, I think we should be careful there. I seem to recall that might have incompatible Apache licenses.
But when I say I based off that, like I looked at the code and implemented it. It's not that implementation. So the Bitpacker is again not theirs. The patching scheme is not theirs. So, but I think as such. The interesting thing is, the patching and exception storing is very similar to how ALP does it. So it was a little straightforward to implement it. But you're correct. Maybe when implementing it in Parquet, we just need to be very cognizant, aware of that.
Yeah, I just don't want to get entangled with licensing things. So another way of starting there is also just this is why spec first can be helpful, just so that we can work from the spec rather than working from reference code.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. I'll then in that case try to send out a spec. Right now I'll be targeting ALP first. And as that wraps up, I'll pick up P4.
Okay, so the P4 is also what's used in the Fastlane, integer encoding. So we're just is this precursor to doing more full Fastlane kind of implementation, or is just what's your thinking?
Maybe wanted some feedback from the team here. The way I understand Fastlanes is alternative to bitpacking. Now, both the schemes ALP and P4 use bitpacking to lay out the data after they've figured out everything, the wrapper around it, exceptions, and number of bits to represent and all of that. So the exact packing schemes can be, bits after bits, or it can be value in one SIMD lane versus another SIMD lane, and so on. So the ALP implementation that I've written it in a way that there's an enum exactly saying what kind of packing scheme you're using, and that can be replaced to fast lanes, so that it's extendable without any issues. And I can try the same for P4. But is my understanding correct, or people have a very different understanding of what fast lane should be?
I think it's become ambiguous with all the papers titled fast lanes, but I think at its core there is I think the bit packing, at least to my understanding, is that's the most interesting thing. I think they do some interesting things with RLE on top of bit packing and have a different scheme there, but at least a big part of it is bit packing and the reordering that happens for bit packing.
Yeah, we're referring to the first paper, right? The one on the bit packing aspect and so on. Not the second paper, which is more taking it to building a file format of the same name. And
okay. So in that case, like we can really, for the specs for both ALP and P4 can be such that you can swap out bit packing and that,
Yeah.
and it becomes easily extendable. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, then I guess that goes in the next and one other of the items we have on the cascading encoding discussion. But yeah, Alkis, you want to say something?
Do we want to make it extensible? I mean, this adds complexity to the readers. Maybe we should just go with Fastlane's layout anyway for any new encoding that ends up being bitpacked.
Yeah, we can. Well, we can just have by extensible. I guess if we follow the how we stack encodings, right? If we have encodings that take a certain type in and another type out, and then they can be stacked like this kind of.
I guess the way I read it is, all the implementations, all the readers already have bit unpacking code right now. Once we start suggesting fast lanes, everyone will have to implement first the core fast lanes part, and then all other schemes will be able to read it. So it'll anyway be a staged thing, and I don't see any significant downside of doing the bit packing first. For fast lanes, we'll anyway have to do a bunch of experimentation on different hardware, figuring out what's the best scheme, and implement that part on all our open source implementations, and then build these encodings on top of it. So anyway, everyone's going to have the bit unpacker, and they just need to have a switch statement later on. Should be very, very straightforward and easier, faster delivery cycle.
Alkis, what do you think?
I think we should go with the fastest thing and try to push that through. The other comment I have for the P4 analysis is that we're comparing to Delta binary packed on ROCPP, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And my understanding is that that's not the state of the art in either decompression or compression.
What's the state of art?
There's different implementations in different engines, and some are faster than others. You can do the one in ROCPP is the simplest one that unpacks everything with SIMD, and it does a 2-pass thing, one for prefix sums and one for unpacking the bit packed. So there's different approaches that give different results. You can fuse them in one go, and that's one approach, and it's generally faster. There is the approach that is done in where was this? I forget which code base was this, where you use the BMI extensions to do extraction, which is supposedly faster. At least that's what their benchmarks are showing. And they're showing something around 2.5 gigs a second. And when I'm looking at the decompression throughput here in the paper, it just seems very low what we observe from ROCPP. And if we can actually get 2 gigs per second from Delta binary packed, what is the big advantage of P4 in this case? Are we going to get a 2x? Is it worth it?
Compression ratio.
One can get, but actually compression ratio can also be better. But if you have, that implementation, fast implementation, please point to that. The second thing is the way the specs being defined. Like if you look at CPU architectures, you have to find a delta value from the previous thing. There's no way CPU is going to deep pipeline that specific thing because of dependency. Now, one can definitely find a better set of instructions to be able to do that, iterating over the data multiple times. But I think, and I've tried out with that implementation in the Delta Bitpack, both like specifically SIMDizing it. I did not get the speed up which P4 was able to claim. I do get 2.5 gigabits per second for Delta Bitpack also on some of the data sets. in that document that I sent out, but it's not consistent. As soon as value starts depending on the previous one, it degrades in the performance. So I can try out the implementation that you are pointing to, but I still feel the way specs been defined, it will not be as fast as before.
So also another aspect, I think at some point we'll have to evaluate also how fast we can do random access on those things, right? Some of the, it's a use case we haven't looked at too much, but I think that's something that's being valued in the newer use cases to build columns, vector stores on top of column stores and things like that. And so it seems like P4 would be better for random access than Delta.
Definitely. You'll have to unpack all the previous values to be able to get to a value. P4 doesn't. P4 is a lot better than for random access.
Is that something that's solvable just with smaller page sizes though? This is why, like if
Yes.
I'm saying like with Delta Bitpack, like if we just made page sizes smaller, does that give us better? There are trade-offs there, but that could give us random access. Like the main thing P4 gives us for better random access is we just like have sub blocks within the page where it restarts, right? I'm not saying, I just want to like clarify like what the technical difference is, right?
We can do that, but again, this is just my thinking. We are masking the inefficiency of encoding by some others.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
So, but I think you're absolutely right about the dependency, and I think this is what Fastlane is solving. This is why I'm pushing for Fastlanes. They're removing the dependency because they're moving it further away, and they have multiple lanes being decoded at the same time, and this is why they're getting close to memcopy speeds of decoding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's why I'm arguing we should go to Fastlane's layout immediately and say there's no other option to avoid falling into these kind of small trade-offs in the space and saying, oh yeah, but I can just keep doing Delta binary pack because I'm just gonna get 2x from P4, so I'm not gonna implement this in my engine. But if you're gonna get a 20x, then you're gonna go and implement P4.
Yeah. No, you are right. If I remember Alkes correctly, based on some early numbers that I tried, a fast lanes over a bit packing. So P4, the way to look at it is P4 is bit packing plus bit packing with the minimum number of bits, making sure outliers are represented as exceptions. Now, once you figure out the number of bits, you do fast lanes on it. So it'll still be P4, but with a fast lanes layout. A fast lanes layout over a very trivial bit packing layout. I don't remember the paper, but from the numbers that I remember, it was around at max 2x or practically 40 to 50% better. So we will, as we go towards fast lanes, we can stack it up fast lanes and then P4, or we can stack it up P4 and fast lanes. What I'm trying to say is it'll still be P4 over Delta Bitpack with the fast lanes layout.
You're saying we're not gonna achieve. You're saying we're not gonna achieve the numbers that published in the Fastlanes paper on the RP4 implementation. I mean, they're claiming 20 gigabytes per second.
Okay, I'll probably take a look at the paper again. I probably should try it on the data set that the paper mentioned.
Okay, maybe let's do that and move on to the next topic. I'm just trying to manage time, make sure we keep. Does that sound fair? I don't want to interrupt an interesting conversation either. Okay, let's do that. Thank you very much for the update. This is very exciting. Next, I guess we can talk about both FSST and the cascaded encoding thing.
Yeah, so on FSST, the draft PR is out there. So had some great comments from Micah and gang. So I think the place where we are stuck is on taking the dependency for FSST, whether bringing it via CMake or vendored. So have an email thread. I think there's some discussion. I'll get back there shortly, and I'll add some more details about the design to the doc. So hopefully by next week the PR should be out for review from folks.
I think we're still, I made this comment on the PR. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Like, and this may go to cascading encodings. I don't want to put FFST in there with like just as a substitute for plain encoding. At the very least, like it should be delta binary packed, but at the same time, it would be nice to leave ourselves an opportunity to like just change how we encode indices there. So like whether that's cascade encodings or like something similar to like the doc I put out on like strings there, like, or like that, but like definitely shouldn't have like inline indices in the inline indices in the actual page. I don't know if it pays to like hold up like a general cascading encoding design for this. Like, so I would prefer to just leave flexibility on how we encode indices, but that could just be like, I guess the simplest way of doing it is for like FSC specifically, like we just embed a page of like page header plus the numbers separately as integers, and like we punt a little bit on the full cascaded encodings.
Yeah, completely.
I don't want to have to redefine like we now have FST with P4 encoded data or P4 encoded fast lanes data, right? Like we should make it so we can encode indices however we want there and decode them. So
yeah, completely. I think composite or cascaded encodings probably there's still some discussion we need to have. On FSST, the benchmark that I'd done was packing the FSST symbol table within each data page as the beginning, as a header, similar to how we do for some other metadata in the Delta bit pack. So happy to, like, if you want to integrate with the other doc, I can go through that doc also, and happy to integrate.
So that's a that's a good second concern. I guess my primary concern is that we like, I think this is where before we have a C++ implementation, let's agree on like what the spec is here.
I see. For FSST?
For FSST.
Got it. Let me add some more details then in the doc so we can make sense completely. So I'll add some more details to the doc and share an update on the mailing list. That way we'll get some consensus there and then probably move towards implementation.
Right. And to be concrete, what I'm suggesting is the way this is laid out is, you know, ignoring the embedding the dictionary or not in page, we embed another, for the actual indices, we just embed a page which encodes the indices inside, and then that gives us flexibility for changing the encoding in the future, and it also solves the main problem of not inlining the lengths inside of the FSST encoded data.
Got it. Sounds good, Michael. So I think there's one more doc that was out there for newer symbol tables and different types of dictionary pages. So I'll check that out doc also. Maybe we can integrate that and start from there for FSSD.
So it doesn't even need to be a doc. Like, I mean, if doc is easier for the proposal to start off with, but like, let's be concrete about what we're proposing to add at the spec level rather than having everybody review the C++ code.
Got it. So we need to finalize the spec. So I'll update that. Let me try to do that by this week. So hopefully by next week we can get some review. And after that, probably move towards code. Otherwise FSST mostly the number side of things are looking good. So we just need to align on the spec and the dependency, how we take that. After that, happy to go towards the PR. And on the cascaded encoding, so I did an initial benchmark on a couple of encodings and shared the numbers. So initially numbers are looking great. I still need to do some more benchmarking on the throughput of read and write and add those numbers for the 3 initial encodings. But otherwise, would love to know what folks think, and I'll enhance the doc a bit, add some more numbers, add some more metrics, and address the comments and get the feedback. So I'll try to do that also by this week. In general, based on the initial doc, if there's any feedback, would love to discuss. Okay, and yeah, I also noticed for the Java client, looks like the Parquet CLI, there's only, I think, 3 commands that support encryption right now. So Parquet CLI does not seem to support encryption, even though we can pass the footer key and everything through the properties and even support it for encryption. So I was planning to work on the other 15 commands to support encryption as well. So yeah, we'll try to do that next week. In general, if there's any reason why we haven't done it historically, or it may be a bad idea to do that, would love to know. Otherwise, yeah, would love to. I'll support it next week, starting from next week. Yeah.
No, I think Micah, I think, responded to you on the list, is saying like it's just like not.
Yeah.
Falco. But
Sorry.
Falco did.
Oh, Foco did. Sorry, I'm mixing people up. That is just not broadly used feature, and I think it was Uber is one of the main, was leading the implementation and the usage, right? So I think it makes sense that you need more of these things. I don't think it's a bad idea to support it. And I think other people who are using it would probably benefit from it.
Got it. I'll try to start on that next week. So my priority will be to first focus on the FSST spec and get that aligned, and we have an initial plan. And then towards composite encoding, we'll try to address some comments, and then the encrypted CLI. So yeah, Micah, I'll probably add some comments in the doc and tag you wherever I need some help. Otherwise, yeah, we'll continue to work on it.
Awesome. Anything else on those topics?
That's all from my side.
And feel free to improve the notes as well as we go. On the doc span, I think we pretty much cover it, right? Like needed to turn off open comments because of spam. And so people should not hesitate to reach out if they want to comment. Anything else? I think that's it. Okay. Website updates.
Website updates. So one thing that's been merged already is we now don't duplicate our metadata files from Parquet format on the website. We just include it as a submodule and link it there. So if there's anything, so we can make Parquet format the source of truth for things that are actually spec level things and just link them on the website. This also means that I was able to quickly add some of the missing docs to the website, like variant and geography and other things. The other thing, I started a thread on this on the mailing list, but I would like to move the implementation status website like page to be data driven. So separate out the data into Antoine suggested YAML files, but right now it's in JSON, and then just render them with the code. I think that will allow us to do other things like, actually figure out for any given feature what the minimum, like how long has passed since many implementations support it, and it goes to Antoine's proposal about versioning. So
so on the Antoine's I think that's a good idea. I think there's some discussion on what's the best representation of what's the easiest to maintain, or something. On the Antoine's proposal, is it about saying what was the time that this thing was supported by all the main implementation?
No, it's going back to like a versioning scheme that I think maybe makes more sense than V1, V2. It's saying you define a core set of features as of a certain time and say and that way you can assess compatibility with a reader. So this is probably as we come to a stable point on encodings, we would say the 2025 version of this thing, and then you can see how far people are away from it. So it's, I understand as like a different versioning, like a slightly different versioning scheme where we are trying to not be as prescriptive about like everything must get in there at a given time to call it out as a versioning thing, and maybe helps people assess their compatibility levels and like risk. Antoine can maybe expand on that, or we can read the link that he posted.
I think that there's eventually maybe defining what Micah said, but there's also the first piece of just, we finally have a chart that shows everyone's compatibility, which is great. It shows a lot of green. The problem is it currently reflects the most recent version of all the encoders. And so if you're using, you know, some older version of those software packages, it's not clear which features you're, you know, how compatible it is. And so I think the idea was we first get historical information about where the features are, and then we can bundle them up in some sort of easier to understand way.
Yeah, I think so. Right. But yeah, and I think that like having that as data, because like we want to know kind of what release they occurred in and what the date on that release, like, and trying to figure out even how to render that on the table is going to be a headache. So I think we've reached the point where we want it as data. We can add those things and then, you know, do whatever pivots we want. That's like a formal display. But
Okay.
For anybody else have stuff on website?
Thank you so much. It's so sweet to actually see variant and geospatial and stuff on the actual website. Like it's so nice, so nice. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Versioning, yeah. So if there's nothing else, we can maybe move on to V2 updates, and I think I need to drop.
Yeah.
But V2 updates, I sent out like proposal to just kind of try to like make it clear. Maybe it's still not clear that like we're kind of moving away from V1 versus V2, and just at this point, it's encodings are kind of supported across the things. And there's a V2 page header, and those things support reading both of them at this point. If I don't know if we need like an official vote on this, but hopefully this like will help clarify what we expect people to support.
Out of curiosity, like I don't see a lot of these page header V2s out there in the wild. Anyone knows the reason behind it?
Yeah, because we never said officially like you shall use V2 stuff, and at least, you know, things have improved over the past 2 years, I'd say, but like, you know, there's still a lot of readers who like never bothered being able to like implement read support for V2 page headers. And I think, yeah.
There are people who don't read them, because I felt like when we did the past, and it turns out actually now most systems just implement it.
I think most systems do implement them. I think it's changed. Like I said, I think it's been an evolution over like 2 years or something like that, or at least like as of 4 years ago, I think there's also been the same problem with encodings, right? It wasn't clear like what encodings people were expected to support. And I think at least in some implementations, like using the V2 page header was coupled with using new encodings. Right. Almost everywhere it defaults to V1.
Exactly. That's the point. Like by default, it's still V1 and it's not forced. At some point, maybe we should set the writer to fall to V2, and that's going to force the reader.
Yeah. And I think we've had these discussions. I think like, you know, in some ways the default, I'm not clear what level the default needs to change. Like if you change Spark to default write V2 stuff, that will probably cause a forcing function. I don't know if you just do Parquet Java, what it would do, or like, but it's maybe I think one of the things that's left over from like this revision stuff is a recommendation on like what we set to like when we say, okay, you can start setting this thing to default value or not. Yep, Marcus.
So the other reason I think is kind of practical and also that they're not a strict improvement. So the practicality thing is that the V2 page headers, they mandate that the row ends, you never have partial rows. And that one is trickier to implement. You cannot stop whenever you want. You have to look at you have to, especially when you're doing dictionary encoding and everything, you need to kind of try to close the page, and then maybe you go over your limits for dictionary and you have to roll back. It's kind of more complicated to write. That's one thing. And the second thing is that the definition repetition levels are always uncompressed, and typically that's a win in most cases, but sometimes it's just the big loss. So then there's no option to compress them. So what do you do?
You encode them.
Yeah, but there's not. Yeah, I mean, at some point we might want a V3.
Oh, you said it. You said it. Don't say that.
That was good to say that too. Maybe we want to table this like page V3 that's strictly all the properties you want, right? Like you remove those special cases, and then that fixes it.
But yeah, I think we can revisit that maybe at some later point once we get encodings better, because that's going to be where I think
This is more important, right? Yeah.
I think it also changed in like the V2 page header. It like mandated a specific encoding. I don't know what that encodings are configurable even in the V2 page header. So you can't even like if we improve the encoding to like fast lanes, for instance, I don't think we can even like do that or cascading encodings. So yeah, so there's a lot of things that are like I would rather not start the I'm sorry I said V3, but I'd rather not start that conversation now until we've actually landed some new encodings. It's like
I think I agree. Right. So the same feedback you gave on the cascaded encoding just earlier, right? So we can like maybe this is all like the V3 page, and we put it in all caps. This is lower priority than new encodings. Like, and but we can mention it, right? I agree with that. I think we have consensus on that, right? Like this kind of, we want to make progress on the encodings, and we'll resume this in the future, right? But we can clarify that V1, V2 are all both supported. Most of the time, maybe you want to default to V2. We want to make sure that doesn't create mayhem. Maybe sometimes you'd rather stay on V1, and we'll discuss a V3 that will remove this sometimes in the future.
I think it would be helpful if we actually held a vote just to have something to point to about this decision of what we're doing with for V1, V2, and what it all means. Because absence of that, like anybody who's not in this conversation or doesn't, see that particular mailing list item or something, it's going to be confusion maintained forever.
Yeah. I'll mention, yeah, we can certainly start a vote. I think the other strange thing here is like we've been doing Parquet format releases at a 2.x level for how many years. So in theory, everything that's in the format directory has already been voted upon and approved as of the last vote. But it's low effort to make a vote. I will try to start a vote maybe Friday in case anybody has any other additional comments that they have concerns on, and we can like resolve them, and then the vote becomes a formality.
Yeah, I'm not sure everybody associates it or agrees that all of those version numbers mean the same thing. So
that's the continuous problem. So
yeah. So I think just having something to point to it and clarify, and I think that we are actually following an existing pattern. We've introduced a lot of things that are somewhat breaking, like new compression codecs. We've introduced those. So introducing new encodings doesn't necessitate a version bump. But a lot of people associate it with that version bump, which I think making the recommendation that people just treat 1 and 2 synonymous, but this includes, support for encodings both under both versioning numbers is a natural progression of things that we've already done.
Yeah. So I happy to have that vote, and I don't think there was any strong objections.
Everybody is confused about this.
Well, I think, so.
Sounds good to me. Okay, do we want, so next topic is, so we have 3 next topics. In what order do we want to talk about them? Because we have 14 minutes left.
I can touch on the column ones just very quickly, because it's mostly just a question of like, do we want to go through the effort of deprecating this and removing it right now? And I think there are a lot of discussions that circle around the multimodal use cases, and it's unclear whether it's the right place to put this stuff in a table format or a file format. I think that there are arguments on both sides and possibly both. So I think all I'm saying is, we can't actually remove it from the spec because it is a field that exists. We could deprecate it and encourage people not to use it, but I think that closes some doors on opportunities for addressing some of these multimodal use cases. And I'm hesitant to take this away right now because there are actually a lot of active discussions about it, saying that obviously we've never leveraged it in the last 13 years. So I think it's just kind of a bad point right now to close that door.
Yeah, I guess my main point is it'd be nice to see like a design here that actually like says it's required at the Parquet level versus just like, we're having discussions. It's great. And like, so like a design that convinces us that like we should be making the effort to support it in implementations versus like this just belongs to the table level. And like that's the main thing. So having like a timeline there, just so it's not like we've been discussing multimodal use cases for like another 13 years and we're like, but this.
I sure hope that's not the case, but I mean, like timelines are very difficult, obviously, to provide specifics around. But I would say that, like, this is an active discussion that didn't exist a year ago, right? So,
and I think those multimodal, because if you look, LensDB as an option, right, to add a column, right, then you can do this, right? So there's operations to do this. My argument that we also need to have this conversation in the Iceberg community is because, like, if you have a Parquet file that refers another Parquet files and they're in different tables and different snapshots, right? Like when Iceberg is going to delete the expired snapshot, it needs to know that this file is referred from another snapshot. You need to be able to prune those data files, right?
Yeah, if we do this, obviously, like table formats or anything that tracks on top of Parquet definitely needs to track those things. The question is just then, like, there are use cases, like you mentioned, like the append column. There are also just like the asymmetric column size use cases, where, now you're seeing a lot of scenarios where, like, oh, you've got like an LLM chat window or something like that that's being persisted as a column, and it's disproportionately larger than all the other columns. And like that just really messes with the current model. And most of that is implementation specific, as well as like how we're laying these out. There's a lot of flexibility within the format itself. And so it's just exploring, hey, is this really a table feature? Is this a format feature? Or is it a mix of both for different kinds of scenarios? And I think there are good arguments across the board. We just need to have those discussions.
Is there a document which talks about the pros and cons of both the approaches?
I think it will eventually come up as a document. Yes. Once we've had some cursory discussions about just like data types, layouts potentially. I think there's the open questions of situations like column append. There are different opinions of how to like affect that. Like some of them say, like this should actually be tracked at the table level. Other ones are saying, well, no, it makes more sense that you can kind of optionally choose between updating a file format and doing DVs, depending on like a merge statement. So there's actually quite a bit involved here. And this is just potentially one mechanism to handle certain problems. Like a good example is streaming ingest of asymmetric column sizes, right? That may actually be very, very hard to do from a table perspective and very easy to do from a file format perspective. So then the question is, like, do we have a mixed mode for these things, or do we want to shove it all into one category or the other?
Are you drawing parallels between how like deletion vectors would be stored in Puffin files and do a one-to-one relationship between that, or something else?
It's something else. Something else.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think all is like, it'd be nice to get conversations into docs and like then actually make the call is my thing. So I believe there's, potential things that might be easier, but without actually seeing them on paper, I think it's a little bit hard to be convinced.
Yeah, continuing with the Micah pointing out the doc, I think it's going to be really important to make sure that we have a general status understanding of the readers and writers out there currently who has really done anything with this, because this has been sitting around for so long that it's, I wouldn't call it like tacitly deprecated, but
Even the stats,
yeah,
even the stats page is wrong because I think it conflates using it for like the metadata file use case and the actual
Yeah.
like you have a new file thing. So we need to go back and update the stats page.
yeah, and so there's a huge question of like, what do you even do with this thing? And so clarity for how it should be used and how people can use it currently, and if any readers and writers need to get caught up to speed to make sure that there is wide support for something that it would be considered pretty fundamental for operating with these files.
If I remember correctly, was Microsoft also trying to do something similar or propose something similar?
They proposed something in Iceberg, I think, to do this. Or like Peter Very, I think, proposed something in Iceberg to do this. I'm not clear on the designs or where that went. Maybe those are some of the conversations Dan's referring to.
Okay, so they're trying to do it at the table level.
Yeah, I mean, people have tried to do it. Like there was a very old PR that tried to do it in C++ as well. So like people have like come up and every time it's come up being like, it's been more like, we don't want to use this in Parquet. So I think like we need to have a very crisp statement on like why we think this belongs at the file level. And like what advantages that does in terms of like, I think it's just like a trade-off there, right? Like why it belongs at the file level, like why is it better at the file level? And then, understanding that there's a big implementation cost potentially to like making it work with a reasonable set of implementation things. So, I mean, it's almost like, I think in some ways, like, it almost seems like it should be like reevaluated from like, here's a brand new feature thing, and not just saying like, this is in the format, like why, like, let's just use it. But it's like not in, I think, either reference implementate, like any of the 3 reference implementations that we care about for new features. So I think it should be, it's just something we should treat as like a new, like a brand new feature, right? Like, I think that's how I view it. Like, it could be that's useful and it could be that we want to make it work, but right now it doesn't work. And it's effectively a brand new feature, even though there was some thought to it a while ago.
So do we have someone who wants to start this document? I mean, like pasting Kenny's email in it or something. What do we want to do? Like listing all the state of the problem or something.
So I don't know that we have like the discussions that we have been having yet have materialized as a document. I think all we're asking at this point is that we don't formally deprecate that field and start telling people do not use this. I also agree with Micah that like, look, there's implementation regardless of where this goes, whether it's in table formats or file formats, it's all basically new. Like any implementation out there is probably not standardized, not leveraged, consistently. So we should look at it and the level of effort, but I don't necessarily think that we should shy away from that. We need to make progress in some of these areas, and we know that this is a problem, and that's just part of like discussing and addressing where it lives, what are the use cases, how would it fit in one place or another.
So as a concrete thing, I think, Dan, you suggested some alternate wording. So instead of saying deprecated, because maybe that scares people, saying like, this field is currently unused and unsupported. To make use of it, we need to go through a formal proposal to Parquet and like go through a reference implementation edition, right? So like point to the contributing.md and like essentially like telling people you should not expect this to work, and if you want to expect it to work, it needs to go through the formal like new feature process.
Yeah, so mine was a little lighter than that. I think we want to give instruction to people who are implementing to, address the concern or confusion that it causes and say like, well, if you should be checking this field, right? Because it is there.
Yeah.
And that's largely so that if somebody does implement it or we do decide to add a feature, you can give proper like, hey, we don't support this kind of thing yet. That probably is not consistently implemented anywhere either. It should have been, but probably not. I do agree that like, yeah, we should go through a formal proposal for using it. We should, I almost think that that's necessary, even though we wouldn't touch the format, depending on how we would actually implement it. But
yeah. Okay. So I'll come up with a PR that hopefully makes everybody happy with language, and we can iterate on there just to like say the current status.
Someone put a variant retrospective in there. So we wanted to do a variant retrospective.
Yep, got it. So this is in reference both to the email that Julian sent out and also that sort of tacit solicitation of the blog post on variant. We're working on something at Carnegie Mellon. We're building out very roughly, we're trying to put together something that's this sort of pitch of, look what we were able to do with the intersection between industry, academia, and the open source community. So this is, let's start putting together everyone's stories of it. Julian, the blog post that you've got there already is going to be something great to help sort of people crystallize sort of, hey, let's talk about this more. So that's fantastic. And we can start looking at getting the blog post on the Arrow or Parquet side, definitely, maybe the Arrow side as well, because there was a bit of complexity going on there that Andrew Lamb was front and center with. Any case, so action item for this is anyone who is involved, even on the sidelines, feel free and actually please do reach out to Julian and myself, as this is a nice sort of thing of let's put together the story of how all this happens, so we can have a little bit of fun with it and thank everyone who was involved along the process. As this was, dear Lord, this was a marathon, and the effort's been highly appreciated. So, fun little thing.
Fortunately, it doesn't land in C++. Any volunteers to do that? No? Okay.
Yeah, we're still in the marathon.
But yeah, but 3 implementations is great, right? We have Java, Rust, and Go at this point. So that's cool.
Yeah, my blog post, the part I shared is part of a larger blog post, which I'm talking more about the kind of the evolution of the new encodings and some of the AI use cases, something. And I'm using Variant as an example of, yes, Parquet is doing big things and collaborating, right? So which is why there's a little summary in there. And I'd be happy to add a link to the other blog post once it's published.
Yeah, perfect. We've currently the 2 main students that were working on it, what we've tasked them with is just building out the entire war story of all of the interactions so far. And once we've got this timelined out, we're going to start sending it to everyone who gets tagged in that, and just like, hey, you got any points on this? Do you want to, we can shove a little quote from you, anything else in, and just make it a big old party of, if you were even tangentially involved, happy to send you a preprint. We'll get the blog post up, and then we'll see if we want to do something like a Sigmund record paper or so, where we condense all of this down into something a little bit more actionable for the academic side of, okay, well, here was this interaction between open source, academia, industry, and a fun little thing. Blog posts is, if you really want to be in the weeds for it. Record is, well, let's talk about the avenues that we can do with open source software.
I love this. Nice Nice. And I think I really want to help more of this happening. I think it's really great.
Yeah, this was fun.
Cool. Nice. Thank you. So we're out of time. So the last things, so I removed my questions. So I had some questions about, should we move those new encodings to also be available in Arrow so we can have more late materialization, but I can, to Micah's suggestion, I can move that to the Arrow mailing list. And I put the new footer update, but I think you spent the last meeting to do an update on that. So I don't know if there's anything else to mention.
So this week we publish the PR to ROCPP. I linked it up at the top. And the summary, yeah, I can just link it again down here.
Yeah.
The summary of last meeting is that the turns out that the LZ4 compresses the offsets reasonably well. So we changed the proposal to not have relative offsets anymore. So that kind of simplifies the new footer.
Okay.
And we have data showing that the compression ratios are not affected by this as long as we compress with LZ4 post flat buff conversion.
It would also be helpful to, like, I don't know if this is already done, August, but separate out like the actual flat buffer spec into like a Parquet format PR, just so that can be reviewed independently. Right, like
to get the FPS file out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Arrow traditionally forks it in C++, so it's fine to have like a copy there, but like we want the canonical version to live in Parquet format. So yeah, move the FBS or copy the FBS into a separate PR against Parquet.
Okay.
Parquet format, just so, and like I think that's the place that will probably get the most like most eyes on the actual flat buffer thing. So
Cool.
Cool.
Sorry, we're out of time. Like, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Are we gonna have the next set of meetings around the Christmas
Oh
break?
yeah, so next meeting is December 24th, which I'm assuming a lot of people here are not going to be present. I am not going to be present, so I was going to suggest we skip this one and meet again at the next time, right? Like, so in 4 weeks then.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, so no meeting on December 24th. Well, we'll get the new encoding released at midnight. That's how it's going to work. No pressure, Pratik and Arnav. No pressure.
Yeah. I think we should like start a email us thread just to like close on the do we push for fast lanes now versus
All right.
try to make incremental improvement, but like that at this point we should try to close on the mailing list. There, I think it's like my mind is mainly a matter of like effort and deferring to people who are like doing the work to get the new encodings, and if they want to take on that effort, like I agree, it would be in an ideal world we would just go directly to fast lanes if we know that's better. If we get incremental improvement, then this is what contributors want to do. I think getting a 2x improvement is still.
Yeah, I think getting some numbers would help decide that. That would be important before we start the discussion. Yeah.
Okay, so IK's Pratik, figure out how you want to communicate that, what Micah just said, and enjoy the holidays break, everyone.
Enjoy the holidays.
Bye-bye.
Bye.